I'm Diego. I'm a rising freshman at Yale, and I plan to study global affairs and economics, but paths could change.
Yeah. I'm Amelie, and I'm a rising second year sophomore at the University of Virginia. And I'm also still figuring out what I'm studying, but planning to do something in the realm of like applied statistics, maybe econ as well.
Okay, perfect. I'm excited to hear more about you guys' journey. Was there any particular study habits that each of you have that you find to be most effective for your studying?
I think I just try to keep my own mental checklist. I think a lot of it's just on like self-discipline and developing that need or kind of like your own self schedule because different people operate on different things. So I think take freshman year when like the course load is really light to figure yourself out, and then as you get older, this applies for anything that you learn more about yourself, and then you
Yeah.
find your own habits and ultimately develop a schedule that works for you.
Awesome. So building a strong foundation.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really like that. I do think I agree that using like the early years, like middle school, freshman year, to just get a hang of things and get your rhythm is good. For me, something more practical is that I really liked using is just like take a lot of practice tests, like practice tests or whatever like materials you're given, and then from there you can see like your weaknesses and your strengths, and then I'd go forth and like work on whatever my weaknesses are, and then focus on those more, and I that really helped.
Awesome. And then what advice would each of you give to high school students to maintain a strong GPA and select the right courses for them?
I think don't feel like GPA is everything. I think there's this like pressure that, especially whether you go to a place like McLean, that's or any competitive public private school, like there's this societal status that comes with the number. At the end of the day, it's just about your learning, and I found that when I try to focus on like what I'm actually learning and the content rather than like whatever the number says and whatever my friend's number says, I took more out of it. And with that, just like explore what you like. If you're interested in STEM or humanities, you can lean towards courses in that. But then I would also say build a liberal arts foundation and then try to learn everything. And then I didn't take AP Physics C just because I'm not into that. But like if you really feel like you can do it, then lean into that. Like I took Comp because that's my strength. And then as you get older, you kind of push into maybe something that you want to dive into a bit more.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with just exploring your interests, because I think even for colleges, they like to see you exploring what you like to do instead of just taking all the courses that you think you should be taking. And you also excel better at things that you're passionate about. I would say just like try your best, give it your all. Like you want your GPA to reflect your effort, and most of the times that will happen. And I think GPA, having a good GPA is like good foundation for your resume. I think it's like it just is a number that I guess shows like the strength of your effort. And I would say also on the topic of course selection, just do what you love and explore. I mean, maybe you don't know if you love something, explore it. And I think, yeah, just enjoy learning.
I think that's good advice because I feel like a lot of like high school students get like tunnel vision
Yeah.
and they lock in on, oh my God, I need a high GPA.
Yeah.
But I feel like high school is a time to explore your interests, even though, college is as well, but it's good to learn how to explore your interests early on.
For sure.
And then what were some extracurricular activities that were offered at each of your high schools, and were there any that you guys participated in?
Well, McLean, at least we had like 75-ish to 100-ish clubs. I personally did Model UN, FBLA, and UNICEF, so I lent to more global affairs, international relations, like volunteer type activities. But ultimately, there is a asterisk, I would say, on starting a club because a lot of people now have just like beat the horse dead, and like the same thing with a nonprofit, whatever. But I would say that if your school has something you're passionate about, join that, put your effort, because I think if you have a genuine passion, it'll come across. But otherwise, if there's really like a niche that you want to fill and that it's not there, then, talk with a teacher, talk with some friends, and if you really have the passion, you'll be able to get started.
Yeah, I also went to McLean, so I was aware of all of these clubs. I wasn't involved in too many clubs. I spent a lot of my high school years more so on the student athlete side, so yeah, a lot of time in tennis and such. But I did participate in like this thing called Mathematics, which was like a math tutoring club, and I wanted to get into it because I was really passionate about math, and I also like really enjoyed like teaching others and sharing this passion for math, and I thought that would be a good outlet. So I really liked that. And then I was on the side of the people who did decide to start clubs with my friends. I started like a coding club with my friends in freshman year, which we were able to grow pretty well, like into hosting hackathons and everything. And I think that was really cool to see it grow and see where we could take it. And then I also started a faith-based club because Christianity is a big part of who I am, and I wanted to have an outlet for that at school. And yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome that you guys had the option to start your
Yeah.
own clubs too. And then was there any point in time where you had to choose what activity or activities to prioritize?
I got lucky. I feel like I always knew I wanted to do something global affairs. I moved around my entire life, so I didn't like STEM. Like I wasn't bad at the numbers, but I don't know, they weren't for me. I like talking, so I was like, let me do something that I can get in front of people, even if it's a little bit scary. So I landed in all three clubs, after like about 2 months into freshman year, and I actually never had to pivot. But for a lot of my friends, I know that they had the first year to explore, and I would say like freshman year, and that's the advice I'm getting for college. Just like the first year, just do whatever you can, explore your passions, and try different things. Try 5, 10 different things, and then when you get to sophomore year, once you figure yourself out, what you really like, what you're good at, then you can kind of pick and choose the 2, 3 clubs to maintain in school, and then you also have your commitments outside of it as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I would say at least for the first 2 to 3 years of high school, I was definitely really focused on, as I said, like tennis. And then I had to like take a moment, I think, towards the end of junior year as I was considering college applications and realize that like, okay, maybe tennis is not the route that I'm able to take for college if I want to choose something that's more academic. That is like a good school. Like I had the option to play tennis, but then I was like, okay, maybe I want to go further with academics. So I think I had to make the decision to like take a step back from tennis and also and I guess you could say like try and build my resume a little more and like show my interest in other areas. And that's when I started putting a little more time into the clubs I was a part of or yes, doing some research on the side to like show my passions. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's so important to be able to recognize like when to take that step back too. And looking back, was there anything you wish you had started earlier or spent more time doing?
So I hated the SAT. I'm just gonna just be honest about that. And I actually didn't end up I got a 1460. I didn't end up submitting it to Yale or Carnegie Mellon, which is another school I applied to. Granted, I applied humanities for Carnegie, so my admission was not as impressive as, something for like CS. But I think the biggest lesson that I've learned, and even I'm still learning now, like I had a math placement test that like I didn't study for until the last minute. That was a bit of a doozy. Like there's gonna be that sacrifice that you have to make, and I think if you want to be at the top, whatever that means for you, if that means an Ivy League, if that means a T20, a T50, whatever, you have to know that that comes with some sacrifice, and whether it's things like the SAT or a math test or a subject, you just have to put that first at some point and say, I'm gonna give a couple days, I'm gonna devote a couple days to studying for it, and then in the long run you'll feel better off for it, even if in the short term there's a little bit of sacrifice. But that's why they call it a sacrifice, because you got to put in the work.
Yeah, I think I was kind of the opposite. I think for me, academics like exams, SAT stuff was pretty straightforward for me, and I was really lucky that it kind of comes a little more naturally to me, and I'm really thankful for that. But for me, I do wish I did start a little more of my extracurriculars, like building my resume, exploring interests a little earlier, because I don't know, I am the oldest child, so I was not too familiar with the college application process. And so I didn't really think about it until like the end of junior year or like whenever college application process season started. And I was like, oh shoot, I think I need to add a little more activities to this. And it felt like I was kind of scrambling, but it all worked out in the end, which I'm very grateful for. And I do believe everything does work out in the end. But yeah, I do wish I was able to, like you were saying, like you were able to get into clubs freshman year and like maintain that throughout. I wish I was able to do that a little, start maintaining things a little earlier, but it is what it is.
Yeah, and then do you guys have any advice about standardized test prep, such as the SATs?
Yeah, I think you're better off answering this question than I am.
I mean, I think I go back to what I was saying for study habits. Like for me, genuinely, it's just practice test after practice test. I genuinely just like did so many practice tests and to the point where like I started to recognize patterns, and I think that's your best bet. And because like it's a standardized test, it's standardized. They have a formula they follow, and I think if you really want to excel at it, like you just have to do it over and over again. And then like for me, I didn't struggle as much on the math side because I'm more STEM focused. So I was like, okay, my math is okay. Let me just do reading test after reading test after reading test until I finally started seeing my score improve. Yeah.
Awesome. And then how did you guys decide on your essay topics for college applications? And then how long did you work on them like before finally submitting?
Um, I did like a value exercise, so there's no way you can paint your whole physical life in terms of the quantity that you've lived. So what I kind of did was I watched a video from someone named the College Essay Guy, and it was a value exercise where I put down the core values, the whys that are most important to me, something like open-mindedness, kindness, loyalty, family. And like once you identify the core parts of yourself, it's a lot easier to build a story around that because that's 5 keywords. It's not a whole life. And then from there, I picked the stories that best align with that. And then I went for a bit of a more collage essay, so it wasn't necessarily traditional. It kind of like had 4 different stories that featured into one overall picture. And with the actual process, it's a lot of, besides the values, it's a lot of writing. I did about like 4 main drafts, but then under each draft you have like subdraft 1, subdraft 2, subdraft 3. So you just gotta like keep writing. And at least for me, like when I write, I always have this golden moment when I land on the right thing. And I think you just trust yourself and you keep writing and you'll find the story, and you're gonna, you share with people around you, and then everyone will be like, yeah, this is it.
Yeah, I think for me, this is definitely going back to one of your other questions, something that I do wish I started thinking about a little bit earlier. But yeah, I think for me, I really, really wanted in this essay to just like reflect my character. I didn't have any like crazy stories, like any life-changing stories that I was like, okay, this is my college essay story. So I kind of just had to explore like kind of along the lines of the exercise you did, like what are my core values? What do I want to reflect to the college application officer? What do I want them to know about me? And I kind of also just wanted to be like authentically myself as well in the essay. Like if they wanted me, they wanted me. If they didn't, then it's fine. Like I am myself. And yeah, I also try to think about like the core values that I wanted to reflect through it. And I kind of wrote more so on one of my main interests, journaling, because I thought that definitely reflected a big part of myself, because I put so much of myself into it. And yeah, I think I started with something different, and then kind of last minute I switched to journaling, and I like completely switched it. So I have like maybe a bunch of drafts of the first one that I was like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
This is just not gonna be the best. So I had to pivot, and I think that's another thing you kind of have to realize, like this isn't working, pivot, try something new, and it ended up working out.
Yeah, so it's okay to pivot if you realize something's not working out.
For sure.
Okay. And then was there any moment throughout the application process that either of you doubted yourself? And if so, how did you overcome that doubt?
Maybe this is a bit like cocky, but I feel like I had this belief in myself where I told myself I'm not going to apply to any college I don't believe I'm going to get into. So that came with a lot of research. Like I didn't apply to MIT. I'm not getting into MIT. They want the STEM Olympians and the geniuses, and that's not something I can offer them. But this is what I really stress. Like you're not studying at a college for 4 years. You're living. You're embodying the next 4 years of your life there. So pick a place that you want to live and grow and succeed. Don't pick a place where you want to study. And I think people get too obsessed with the rankings sometimes. Like every school on my list was somewhere that I knew I could succeed. I knew I would be happy, even if the results didn't go my way. And once you can kind of do the research, visit the campuses, read about things like student life and culture and frats and things like that, because that stuff matters. And then, you develop a really good sense of every single school on your list. And then, if you have the stats or the extracurriculars, whatever, that's great. But if you have the confidence in yourself, just by the end of it, when you have your finalized list, just say I can get into every single school on that list and then match that with the effort. And I got lucky. I was able to achieve that outcome, but I had friends who adopted a similar mindset and they had great results.
Yeah. I think for me, a moment I kind of doubted myself was, I guess that moment I was talking about earlier when I was realizing that I had to pivot away from tennis because I had put so much time and effort into it, and I was like, my plan was to play in college, so I was like, I had kind of had tunnel vision for it, and to a point where I didn't really do anything else. So once I started hearing about like all my friends and all the extracurriculars they were a part of, their resumes, I was like, I started to doubt myself. I was like, my resume is like half the length of yours. No clue how I'm supposed to do this. But then I was just like, what's done is done. Um, and right now it just matters like what I can do from here on out. And I think I just put my all into like the 1 year I had to build that resume, and I um, just want to reflect my passions once again and just like do everything that I could instead of just like living in that regret or that doubt. And yeah, that worked out.
And then looking back, how did your experience at C2 help you prepare for college, both academically and personally?
I think for me, a lot of it was the academic aspect of it. Like I came from a small town in New Jersey where the academic standard was not as high, and a lot of the resources and support just couldn't translate over. And I think C2 was great for a lot of like maybe it's more so my STEM based classes. Like I went a lot for math, calculus, physics, even for like things like a push or history. So I really appreciate like the thorough academic support and options that they had, and I think knowing that there was a place where I could go to gain support for my maybe more academic weaknesses, and instead of like worrying at home, I could take a bit of a breath. I know I have a place to work. I know I have a place to get support, and then when I'm at home, I can focus on either the work that I can do or my strengths and my extracurriculars and my passions.
Yeah. I think for me it was definitely really helpful for the college application process because, as I said earlier, I'm the oldest child, so I didn't have much direction, or like my family didn't have too much of an idea of like what the college application process is like, what colleges are looking for. And so I think C2 really helped me not only with like college counseling and in a sense where like helped me find direction of where I want to go and like how I can get there, and also expectations of if I can or can't get there. And then also with the college essay counseling, it was really helpful because I think they also did a similar exercise to what you found online of like listing just short words of like your core values and then finding stories that reflect that. And I think yeah, that was really helpful. And I also kind of just got to just like throw ideas out there and throw ideas at someone who had seen people go through the college application process, also knew what college admissions officers are looking for, and then also like give me honest advice on like, is this gonna work or is this not gonna work? So yeah.
Awesome. And then was there a specific tutor or class or like a moment at C2 that made a lasting impact on your confidence or approach to learning?
I would say that there's two. There was, I don't remember her name now, but there was a former writing kind of, she was a teacher there during my sophomore year, so probably 23, 24, around that time period, and I was applying to a Georgetown summer program, and like in I guess the description of the campus, like we're more so aiming for like underprivileged kids who maybe don't have the chance to go to a program like this. And I was like, like I don't, I'm not like, I don't own a mega mansion, but I don't come from like an underprivileged background either. So I was like, oh, should I try to like hide my character? Should I try to like fake part of myself? Like, is this even worth applying? And then she was like, no, you have so many amazing parts of yourself. You're a global kid. This is camp for you to learn about global affairs, so showcase that. Don't hide a part of yourself, just put yourself 100% out there, and then like she said earlier, if they're gonna want you, they're gonna take you, and then if it's not for you, then you put 100% of yourself out there, you were genuine. So there's nothing that that you should worry about anyway. And then the second one was a math tutor named Mr. Ting, who I think for me was, a bit rough around the edges sometimes, but I think he has a real passion for teaching, like whether it be math or physics. And I think when someone loves the subject as much as he does, then you kind of get motivated to do the same as well.
Yeah, I think for me, one standout experience was I think I had a college essay session with Mr. Jonathan, and he really specializes in that stuff and has, as I was saying, like seen so many people go through the process. And I remember just this like one session where it was just in a room. It was kind of like, I just remember it was kind of dimly lit, so it was like it felt kind of intimate, and he was just like, tell me stories of what you could write, just keep going. And it genuinely felt like a therapy session. I just like started just pulling random stories out, and I'm like, I've never told this to anyone, but like I'm trying to find an essay to write. And then he was just so like receptive and really good at listening and just like helping me choose like, okay, you told me this story, what does this reflect about you? Is this what you want to show to the admissions officers? And I was like, that was definitely a really standout experience, and it really helped me just kind of, it was also really cool to just like reflect on my life and see what stories I could come up with and like pull out of my life. And yeah, I think just the college application essay and just the process in general is just a really, really cool time to just reflect on everything you've lived and experienced. So yeah.
Awesome. It sounds like they have a lot of different options in
Yeah.
terms of teaching styles
For
for
sure.
teachers. And then what advice would you give to current high school or students who are considering joining C2 to help achieve their academic or college goals?
I think, I know there's different centers depending on the location. I would say maybe go into it just knowing, what you need. Like for me, I definitely needed more of an academic support, more so than necessarily like the ins and niches of the college application process. So going there with like a plan, like, I'm going to primarily focus on STEM tutoring, which is definitely like the bulk of where my tutoring hours went. And then, just talking with your teachers and kind of being very communicative with whether that be like at the time Miss Fanny was I believe the director of the center that we were working at. So just really knowing yourself and your needs and then being open about that. Like if you're not that good at something, it's okay. Like no one's gonna be perfect. No one's Superman, right? Just, be honest. And then I think all the teachers there, if you show that honesty, are quite, flexible with deadlines, with homework, or, what you need to get done that day.
Yeah, I think I also agree with a lot of that. And then also just like don't be afraid to ask questions. They're there to help you, and they're passionate about their subject that they're teaching. They're teaching it for a reason. Like they're here trying to working to tutor you and like in this specific subject. Like they have a specialty, they've learned it, and they've gone through everything. So just like don't be afraid to ask questions. This is the time. Like questions that you might not be able to and might not feel comfortable asking in school or in class. Like this is the time to like just ask them, and just know that they're there to help you. And I think, yeah, and just kind of just put effort into it. I think it's easy to kind of just like go to sessions, but a lot of it is also on you to like put effort into what they assign you outside of class, and also like using your time effectively. Like you have a set amount of time with this tutor, like use them. Like they're there to help you. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining me on the podcast and sharing your knowledge with us. I wish you both the very best in everything that comes your way in the future.
Thank you.
Thank
you
you
for having us.
If you're a business owner, founder, or entrepreneur, we would love to have you on the Alamon Show. Just go to alamonphotography.com/podcast, sign up to be featured.